this comes from the only information I have on this questionnaire is it is a male. Okay. People say money doesn't buy you happiness, but it does provide certain comforts. How do you balance doing something you love and doing something that pays you well if the thing you love doesn't pay well? I'm contemplating working for either a big tech firm or working in social impact. For context, I'm supporting a young family of 4. Oof, juicy. Where do you want to begin, babe?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's so many
I know.
elements to this question, right? There's elements around values, elements around decision making, lifestyle, family. I mean, we could pull on any number of threads. And I think for me, it really resonates because this question is part of my career journey, right? Starting off in the nonprofit sector and thinking for me, it was my dissatisfaction was all about the compensation and the salary, which wasn't the case, but that's what I presumed it to be, and transitioned into commercial real estate, which was a big misstep for me. And it's, sometimes it is money. I mean, at least to some extent in the society that we live in, it's a capitalist society. We have internalized capitalism as humans, for how much, how long, how hard we work, but also for what work is valuable and what is valued in this society. And so maybe we start there.
Sure. I'd love to start there. Keep talking, because I have thoughts on. I just want to throw out a statistic. Don't keep talking. This is usually your job. Not your job, it's your gift. So the cost of raising a child. I'm gonna start there.
Yes.
Which, I'm kid free. I have a step kid. You're kid free. You've got doggos. The cost of raising a child now from 0 to 18 is $240,000
For basics.
And yeah, and I mean, of course, right? There's things, it depends where you live, but for the basics. So that comes out to about $20,000 a year. For this questioner, that's $80,000 a year with 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that assumes a number of things, but I think the underlying, this is not, for the questioner, it's probably like, yeah, no shit, this stuff's expensive. Why do you think I want to work in big tech? Get all this money. So I offer that as like a reality, right? And I think whenever I have someone asking these questions, they don't live in reality, because I don't want them to. I want them to live in, dreams. And I think you got to have them. And then you got to sort of get practical about it, especially if people are depending on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anyone alive who doesn't have someone at least depending on them, or you're depending on the other person. I mean, I want us to be more interdependent, I guess, as a society. But
Yes.
so your invitation to think about this from a like questioning what's happening inside, and my invitation, very uncharacteristically of me, but it's part of my life, to think about it as like the dollar side. What do you do next then? So you're considering both. This is what he's considering.
Yeah,
Holy
you're
shit. Yeah.
considering these options. And when we are confronted with a decision, the best decision making that we can do is both deliberative and intuitive. And that comes from Malcolm Gladwell, right? We can't just make decisions with our heads. We can't just make decisions with our hearts.
Right.
We got to constantly be toggling between these two for the decision to be both effective, but also to be something that the decision at minimum has a net neutral impact on our life, but at best is elevating it. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I always love to employ is a decision matrix, especially when it comes to big decisions. Now, we're not talking about what should I have for lunch or what should I wear today. Let the big decisions be big, keep the small decisions small. Do not exert extra energy there. But, it's thinking through what are your decision making criteria?
Mhm.
And often those criteria are rooted in your values, your current priorities, who stands to benefit
Mhm.
from this decision. And so starting out by generating a list of criteria. What
Mhm.
are the most important things in my life, whether those are related to values, family priorities, who's going to benefit, how are people going to benefit from this choice? Because, like you said, we don't make decisions in silos, they're interdependent. And then coming up with and generating all of the possibilities. And when I say all of the possibilities, most of the time people will generate two possibilities. But the
Right.
truth
In this
is,
case, let me just remind the listeners, big tech firm or social impact. And I'm laughing because we got to add humor to everything. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it's what I would suggest to this listener is that there are probably a half dozen other possibilities on that spectrum.
Mhm.
And so really thinking through what are the pairings, if not if, because money is needed, and for this listener, $80,000 a year in kiddos alone. Um, it's what do I need to derive from my work versus what do I need to derive from my life, and
Mhm.
coming up with all of those possibilities, right? And so in tech, are you able to find a big tech firm that has a social impact arm that you respect and aligns with your values? Or if you choose big tech, is there a space or an organization or a company in the social impact space that you can volunteer your time to, that you can donate to? Because I will tell you, as someone who for a long time was part of the nonprofit industrial complex, um, you can make change and make impact in society without having to work for a nonprofit or a social impact firm. And it doesn't have to come from your sweat equity. It can come from your bank account. It can come from volunteer time. It can come from writing letters, hosting
Mhm.
dialogues and conversations around the topic. So for this listener, it's really taking those blinders off and imagining what are the possibilities and what is it I need to derive from my work versus my relationships versus my lifestyle, because your work's never going to love you back. It's just not, but your family and your kids and your friends will. And
Yep.
so making decisions based on what can actually be offered by those two different spaces and the need that it needs to fill in your life.
And if you are a person who's like, this feels squishy and I need a spreadsheet,
We
we
got
have
one.
one. I just saw it in action yesterday and I was like, oh my God, it tallies up based on these weighted efforts. And I love it. So if you're interested in that, we've got one. We can share it with you. We'd be happy to do that. You said a lot of what was coming up for me too,
Okay.
in response. So that's good because I'm always right. No, I'm not always right. What
No,
is
she
right?
is.
What is time? So yeah, the first and for you already said this. I'm just going to level up a couple of things you said and
Please, please,
plus
please.
one. Plus one, what do you value? Um, I think as a parent, you're going to come into conflict. Well, who cares what I value? Because I have a young family of four. So I have to, right, do this thing. and that thing is a high paying job. I love what you said about yes and, right? Like, what do you value and how can you get the value honored, or how can you avoid getting the value T-boned? You know what I mean? Like two cars on a road. I value independence. I'm kid free. I run my own business. That doesn't mean I won't ever work, quote unquote, for someone. I work for a lot of people. For you, I work for Katie. I work for my team. But it does mean when I make decisions that I'm considering autonomy first. So, but that's how I'm living my life. It's not maybe how others are living. And then, look, asking for help. I think this is something I would add to what you said. So that's why you reached out to us. Good work. I would say a step further, I really want to invite you to go to a financial planner. If you don't have one, to get one. They're not all created equal. Do not post it on Facebook. Go to someone who has the life you want. Ask who helps them. That person, especially if you're going to be saving for college, this number goes up, up, up. Just see what's possible. Like, what can you live on in a year? Live on and maybe thrive, have the life you want that values align. So I'm a big fan of outsourcing this stuff. Yes, financial planners cost money. Yes, there are also services that'll help you that don't cost as much money. I'm going to send you to Google for that, or your trusted network. And then I think this is my plus one to something else you said, Katie, options. One of the things I love to say is you cannot know yourself by yourself. It starts there. But lo and behold, when I was in my clinical training, I loved group therapy. I love being a part of group therapy. I love groups, period, because you see all these facets. So yeah, getting those options. Also, I just want to challenge you, doing what you want and what you love doesn't pay well. I don't know. I mean, if you really do want to go into something, and Katie and I work with a coach who helps us with things like profit margins, who helps us really embody, we can be $1 million company soon, who helps me, live a thriving life. So, I'm also a woman of privilege in so many ways, but I just want to say I want to level up those things, like the values piece, the options piece, and then asking for help. Get a good team together.